Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the South Donetsk direction, where the Russians are about to finish the battle for Ugledar. As you can see, we have a lot of icons, and as you can see, a lot of icons with flag, which means additional control of the armed force of Russian Federation. And before we start discussion all these geolocations, summarizing everything, we can make a conclusion that most likely the city of Ugledar is going to fall today on the 25th of September of 2024. Now let's discuss in details. First, let's talk about the western flank. According to different mappers, including pro-Ukrainian and neutral mappers, the Russians, as a result of clashes, managed to improve their positions in the north of Prichistovka and to get a little bit closer to the village of Ukrainka that is located to the north. The Ukrainians during the previous 24 hours made a lot of attempts to counterattack the Russian forces, but the Russians repelled every single Ukrainian attack, and Ukrainians without any success were forced to fall back. As for the eastern flank, northeastern flank, today we got the final confirmation that the Russians, as a result of clashes, managed to establish complete control over the coal mine South Donbas number 3. The Russians published lots of episodes, video with a significant number of episodes, with a significant number of flags raised all over the entire South Donbas coal mine number 3. We see different flags of Russian Federation. We can see flags of different units that was responsible for the battle for this stronghold. Anyway, this is a glorious victory for the armed force of Russian Federation. Obviously, the Russians are not going to stop, and as you can see, most likely the Russians managed to take under control this stronghold a few days ago, but just on the night between the 24th and 25th of September, the Russians start publishing video with flags, and the main idea is to begin flag attack. This is exactly flag attack, you need to understand this. To begin the flag attack from the Russian side right before the meeting between the President of Ukraine Zelensky and the President of the United States of America Joe Biden. So the Russians' main goal is to force Biden not to approve, not to authorize Ukraine to use long-range missiles to attack deep inside of the territory of Russian Federation. And now let's talk about the city of Ugledar itself. We have a lots of icons, we have artillery strikes, and the most important, we have geolocations that confirms additional progress of the Russians on the ground, and that the Russian armed forces managed to enter the eastern part of the city. And this report we got yesterday in the evening, right before I finished with the previous video. This is very important because obviously during the previous night the Russians managed to improve their position significantly, and most likely, once again summarizing everything, most likely today the city of Ugledar is going to fall, and most likely today we're going to start receiving the videos with the first flags, once again flag attacks from the Russian side. Right, exactly in this episode we can see the first Russian stormtroopers that were entering the city of Ugledar from the east. This is exactly the building where the Russian soldiers were moving in. Later we got additional video that shows additional control and additional progress of the armed force of Russian Federation in the city of Ugledar. We have lots of FPV drone attacks in Ukrainian forces. We can see Russian infantry that was moving through the city from one building to another, and as you can see, Russians conducted a very dangerous offensive operation, because from one side the Russians were moving in the city already, and from the other side we can see significant number of artillery strikes, including tall flamethrowers. So the Russians were fighting very close to the main epicenters of attacks, which is very dangerous because there were very high risks that the Russians could attack their own force, or something like friendly fire.
Angela also Brooks illegally dodged more than $13,000 in property taxes, but she wants us to pay more, including higher Social Security taxes. Angela also Brooks, higher taxes for you, illegal tax breaks for her.
Picture this. You're sitting at home alone watching YouTube videos, wondering why you can't find the motivation to do the things you need or want to do, or change in the ways you'd like, even thinking.
So let's wait for additional updates, and the most important, that all these things we've been discussing during the previous 5 minutes, we got around from let's say from 9 p.m. of the 24th of September till 3 a.m. of the 25th of September of Ukrainian time. And this morning on the 25th of September we got additional report, and the Russians are saying that as a result of clashes they managed to enter the stronghold of Ugledar from the western direction as well. So most likely during the day we're going to receive additional updates that confirms Russian progress in this part. So this is obviously a significant victory for the armed forces of Russian Federation, and the most important that today, also this morning, the Institute of Study of War have already reported that the Ugledar is not so important, and the stronghold of Ugledar doesn't affect the defense possibilities, capabilities of Ukrainians further in the northern direction. So as for the mental loss, Ukrainians have already lost the battle for the stronghold. Now let's move further to Kurakhova direction. As you can see, we have a lot of icons from this territory as well, and the most important that pro-neutral mappers and pro-Ukrainian mappers confirms that the Ukrainians were forced to fall back completely from the Nivolskaya cauldron, and now the Ukrainians are trying to stick as close as possible to the main evacuation routes that located in around the village of Zaryana. So the Ukrainians are falling back exactly in this part, and obviously this will not help the Ukrainians to escape encirclement. The Russians, as you can see, created at least 3 points of pressure in this area, and most likely during the next few hours, during this upcoming day of the 25th of September, the Russians will begin the general attack with the purpose to cut this territory in many pieces. Most likely the Russians are going to attack the positions of the armored forces of Ukraine inside of Nivolskaya cauldron, or at least the territory that led from the cauldron. Most likely the Russians will try to attack in direction of Tsukurina with the purpose to cut and to encircle the armored forces of Ukraine in this entire direction. So let's start from the beginning. According to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians took under control the village of Zhelana Pirshe, and most likely today the Russians will continue moving further in direction of Zaryana. During the previous few weeks, the Russians managed to capture the farms in the northwestern part of Krasnogorovka, and as I understand, the Russians are going to move in this direction as well with the purpose to cut the Ukrainians in these fields and not to allow them to escape the encirclement. Furthermore, as for the village of Gostre and the prison, Selidovskaya prison number 82, today the Russian sources published additional video, full video, complete video of how the Russians were attacking and storming armored forces of Ukraine in this direction with a significant number of armored vehicles, tanks and personal carriers. And as a result of attack, everything in this direction was captured by the Russians, and most likely from the positions of the prison number 82, the Russians are going to attack in the western direction towards Ostrovskaya, and most likely the Russians are going to attack in direction of Alexandropol and in the direction of Vovchenka, and most likely this is going to happen today. Furthermore, in the northern direction, I expect that the armed forces of Russian Federation will begin full-scale offensive operation to the south, trying to take under control the northern part of Gornyak. And of course, if you remember, during the previous few days we were talking a lot about additional Russian progress to the west of Ukrainsk. First the Russians took under control the coal mine of Selidovskaya, then the Russians took under control two strongholds to the south of this area, and most likely these upcoming 24-48 hours the Russians will continue moving in the southwestern direction with the purpose to take under control the village of Tsukurina and the village of Kreminna Balka. If the Russians are able to success in these offensives, we see the entire picture now from when we zoomed out map a little bit, then the Ukrainians might lose up to from 5 till 10,000 soldiers in this direction. The Ukrainians would be completely defeated, most of them would be encircled, and the Ukrainians will lose organization and coordination, and this can lead to complete disaster, not just for this direction but also for Kurakhova and of course for Selidova. So let's wait. Tomorrow, once again, the meeting between Joe Biden and Zelensky is going to take place, and Russia will do everything they can with the purpose to make this meeting as worse as possible.
Everything you're about to see is real.
As for the Торец direction, during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything. The same story about the Chasiv Yar direction, just few artillery strikes on the northern parts from the Russian multiple launch rocket systems. Siversk direction, nothing special. As for the southern Kupiansk direction, we have additional small changes on the ground to the north of Nevskaya. Most of the mappers have already adjusted the territory between Makeyevka and Nevskaya as a territory under complete Russian control. We still keep this area as a contested area, and today we got additional geolocation how the Russian armored vehicle was moving from the south to the north, and that this vehicle was damaged and attacked by Ukraine FPV drone. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map a little bit. Now let's talk about the northern Kupiansk direction. We have additional progress on the ground, and the sources are saying that, as we've been discussing for the previous few videos, now the Russian main focus and the main Russian goal is to encircle or to capture or to force the Ukrainians who are currently located between the flower of Pishane, Kruglakovka and Lazova. And during the previous 24 hours, we got report that the Russians began full-scale offensive operation on the line from Berestova towards Lazova. Most likely during the upcoming day, we should expect additional attack from Stelmachovka to Lazova, and most likely the Russians will continue improving their positions on the line Pishava-Lazova as well. So something big is going to happen here during the next few days, and most likely the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back towards the village of Boguslavka or even further towards Novoplatonovka. So the situation for the Ukrainians here is very critical as well. Now let's move to Volchansk. We continue receiving additional updates about Ukraine attempts to counterattack Russian positions. Yesterday there were reports about complete control over Aggregatny plant. Today the group of forces north, they published official statement, and they confirmed that the Russians, due to the fact that the north of Vovchansk was reduced till ruins, still dust. This is, for example, the picture of the north of Vovchansk, and as you can see, the situation here is much worse even in comparison with Marinka or with Novomikhailivka. So the entire northern part of Vovchansk was reduced to dust, as you can see, and the Russians are saying that due to this situation they were forced to fall back completely, and the Russians retreat from aggregate plant. And now we got additional video of how the Russians were bombing the Ukrainian positions in this block, and this video also confirms that Ukrainians managed to improve their positions even further. So this is the only area where the Russians are retreating, because they understand that there is no reason and no need to hold this dust and these ruins. The Russians are falling back. Now let's move to the Kursk direction. We have additional changes on the ground. According to information we have, according to different mappers, the Russians managed to take under control everything to the west of Borky, and now this territory is already under Russian control, and the Russians reached the outskirts of the village of Plokhova. So this is going to be the next target. Furthermore, as for the group of forces north, today they stated that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to break through the Ukrainian defense belt and to improve their positions for additional 2 kilometers. Maybe they're talking about this part, but maybe the Russians will publish additional updates about Russian control over the villages of Pokrovsky, Darina, Nikolaeva, Darina. As for Glishkova direction, Ukrainians haven't managed to improve their positions even for a single meter. We have additional videos of how the Russians were counterattacking the Ukrainians, but most of those attacks were repelled. So anyway, more or less we understand the line of combat contact that goes along Glushkova region. As you can see, currently there is a meeting in New York, and people are waiting for additional updates, additional results of meetings between Zelensky, Scholz, Zelensky, Biden, and many other purposes. But everybody understand that Zelensky plan about let's say a peace plan is something like wishful thinking. For example, today Czech President Petr Pavel said that Kiev needs to accept the part of Ukraine, that part of Ukraine territory will temporarily be under Russian occupation even if the war comes to an end. So people are trying to force Zelensky understand that no chances that Ukraine, either Ukraine or Ukraine with NATO, are able to defeat the Russians and to force them to fall back to the borders of 1991. Furthermore, we have additional reports that Biden administration considers Zelensky arguments regarding strikes on Russian territory futile. So the sources are saying that Biden still hasn't made a decision regarding regarding Ukraine, regarding authorization of Ukraine to attack deep inside of Russia. And as I understand, tomorrow is decisive day, and tomorrow we're going to receive a report about this decision. But due to the situation on the front line, most likely the President of the United States of America will not authorize Ukraine to do this. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.